I'm Paige Stewart. I am a clinician and coordinator for the early childhood mental health program known as Crib to Kindergarten. I'm housed under Canyon City Schools as well as the ECHO Early Childhood Council. And I provide clinical services, consultation services to young children and families starting prenatal up to kindergarten entry. My journey to this point definitely wasn't a straight line. When I first started looking at mental health, I didn't even know about infant and early childhood mental health at that point. It was through wonderful contacts and people in the community that led me to meet my MSW intern supervisor, who was the one that kind of introduced me to the world of early childhood. And there were lots of twists and turns. When I first started, I was looking at going into occupational therapy. I knew that I wanted to work with people, support people. And as I started going to school for that, I quickly realized, this is not where I'm supposed to be. So working with the physical body of people was just not my place. So it was much more appropriate for me to work with kind of the mind, the heart, and the core of who we are as people. I started out my career as a case manager, a mental health case manager for adolescents. And what I found was at that point, kiddos had a lot of really significant stuff going on. And I found myself asking, how do we intervene earlier? How do we get people supports and resources earlier and work towards prevention rather than trying to help pick up the pieces after things are already kind of difficult? So from there, I went back to school to get my master's in social work and began my internship with the ECHO Early Childhood Council with my predecessor in this position, who was an infant and early childhood mental health clinician. I got to learn from her and really found the beauty and fell in love with early childhood work, where we can get in early and support families and children in building the strongest foundation possible so that down the road they have tools and resources to turn to. They're not having the same level of need and crisis that's going on by the time they're getting older, because they have a good foundation to start from. So, the field of infant and early childhood mental health is about 20 years old, so it's fairly new when it comes to mental health practice. It is very research and data-based. It is fairly cutting edge. And it's known as an advanced clinical practice because you're not just doing therapy with a baby. You are supporting the parent and understanding their relationship patterns that have been passed down generationally. So we may be addressing things related to the baby's grandparents, great-grandparents, and how these things get passed down through generations and families. We have a really beautiful window of opportunity in early childhood. Prenatal to age 3, the window of experiences is wide open. So kiddos are building a foundation that they build the rest of their lives upon. So how do I trust relationships? What do things look like? How do I negotiate the world around me? And so we have a lovely opportunity when they're little to help them set that foundation that they build on the rest of their lives. So I also coordinate our programs. So I manage referrals. I assign cases to other clinicians and providers in the community. I support families connecting with other resources like home visitation or financial or educational resources, supporting them getting connected with preschools or childcare. And I also work as an advocate for children and young families in our community. So speaking up and being a voice for them and working to bring the resources that we may be lacking in our area. There are a lot of things that I enjoy about my role. One of the things in particular that I really appreciate about the work I get to do is I get to build relationships with families, sometimes in points in their life when they're feeling extremely vulnerable, and to be a support and a resource and somebody there that believes in them and encourages them through hard things. I'd be lying if I said that getting to spend time and playing with fabulous little people isn't a wonderful part of the job. So 2-year-olds are some of my favorite people in the world. You always hear terrible twos, but they're amazing people, and they're starting to find who they are and developing as a person, and it's really exciting to be a part of that. I think one of the other things I love about my job is some of the parents who come through maybe didn't have great childhoods themselves, and it's hard for people to know how to give what they never received. And so through the parallel process, by me believing in them, encouraging them, supporting them, they're building a model for how do I support, encourage, and believe in my child as they grow and learn. And there's a lot that I love about my job. So connections with families and having an opportunity to be there to support people in hard times in their lives, to give them a different choice how they move forward with their lives instead of just following, this is what I've always experienced, this is what I've always known. We give them a key to unlocking, what do I want to choose as I move forward. Even with as rewarding as the job is, it does come with some heartache that goes along with it. When we are serving families and children, I serve a lot of families who've experienced significant trauma. I serve young children who've experienced abuse and neglect. And I'm thinking of an example of a baby who came to me several years ago, and she had been so severely abused and neglected. She looked like a tiny little skeleton and wouldn't look at people, would flinch if people tried to pick her up to care for, would flinch if you tried to kiss her or love her. And I worked with this family for a couple of years. It was a foster adopt family at this point, so she was out of the dangerous situation and in with a loving family, and got to support her actually making up for lost time in that. So through that process, even though it was very difficult, also having the rewarding side of seeing her growth and overcoming these difficult things that happened to her in her first few months of life. I think another challenge of this job is there aren't many of us in this field. So infant and early childhood mental health is a scarcity, particularly in a rural region like this. In Denver, you have more resources, more people available. I am one of, at this point, 4 in our community who have gone through the Harris Fellowship training, and one of only 2 who are working full-time with young children and families. So unfortunately, there is a great deal of need, and we can only spread so thin. If you have an interest in working with young children, there are a lot of avenues to kind of start. So home visitation is certainly an area that is near and dear to my heart. It's an amazing resource for families where somebody is literally coming to their door to be a support, be a cheerleader, be a resource for them, and help them to understand what's going on for their child's development and how do they support that. We also have a lot of people who start in early care and education with young children and find that they really love working with kiddos and have an interest in that. And then from there, I certainly have a bias towards social work. That's the pathway that I took, but there are a lot of different mental health pathways available. I wish I could say that there was a direct pathway into early childhood mental health, but really, you start with that experience with young children and families, gaining that mental health experience either through social work, psychology, counseling, and then seeking further training from there. So if you'd like to learn more about this program, you can contact us at the Echo Family Center Council. We're located at 490 North Diamond Avenue in Canyon City, Colorado, where we house a variety of early childhood services and programs, including early screening, early childhood special education services, as well as the CRIP to kindergarten and maternal wellness mental health programs.